Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Big Talk About Small Business. I am your co-host because our host is actually out for today, dealing with some sickness. He got the vid.
Ooh.
Yeah, he got the vid earlier this week. Mr. Grand Opening for the podcast video studio. Right. Yeah, and he was supposed to be here interviewing with the media as well. And so was Mr. Saffran, who is my guest. We have guest Josh Saffran, the great.
The one and only.
The one and only Mr. Josh Saffran. And you came by the grand opening yesterday.
It was cool.
It was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm proud of you. I know you a long time. I don't want the tears to flow here, but to see what you built here and the people that came through and watching you in your element last night, I mean, it was a proud moment for me as a good friend of yours, but just to see what you're doing here, and you have all these visions. You operate at 80,000 feet, then to watch it come to life live and see the people interacting here, it was super cool for me to see.
Well, you know, it really does come down to the team, right? I mean, we have a good team of folks here that, I mean, big event, and they took care of everything. I mean, they rocked it out. They're the ones that made it happen, so that's really cool to see.
And I saw your daughters working here.
They were.
And I saw her friend Molly was working here, so the whole basketball team, I'm like, we're rocking the shirts, and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? They're like, oh, we work for Mr. Howerton. We work for It's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, it's cool to see young folks engage in business.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, you know, on that, because we do have some young listeners that get in, they're trying to start up a business and what everything. But, you know, I think the big thing for young people is you got to show up. You know, honestly, if you just show up and you stay involved and you're actually, I mean, because I can tell you that a lot of entrepreneurs or even business owners are looking for people that just show up and make things happen.
Yeah.
And that's a good lesson to learn.
Well, this community, and I tell my son who's graduating high school, how this community, there's a lot of who you know. Obviously, you have to put in the work for the what you know, but he goes to school, he'll get a degree, and he focuses. But by knowing people like yourself and being able to get themselves networked here, this is a great place for young people to start their career because there's lots of opportunities with a little bit of hard work, but knowledge of the ecosystem and the people in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times it's just about, and you know this, and we'll get into your story, but I mean, it's just about getting, you know, just taking that step forward, having that confidence. I mean, you can't plan in business to have everything figured out. That's one thing that I've learned is like, there's a nice balance between strategy and action.
Yep.
And I've seen so many folks just strategically put themselves into a corner and they never actually get anything done. Then I see a lot of folks that just take action without thinking about the long term, but you got to find that nice little balance. And you've done that with actually a couple of things, haven't you?
Well, first of all, I chuckle as you say this because I was telling somebody the story last night. You and I operate super visionary. And you and I try to get stuff done, and now we've got to a point where like I'll bring my wife to a meeting just so we could actually put together follow-ups and things. Because right, if you have two visionaries in a room together, we're spewing out amazing ideas, but the action doesn't follow through with it. So you have to surround yourself with the right people that are balancing out all your visionary ideas with people that can take it and run with it and execute the vision. Well,
let's get one thing straight though. My ideas are good. Yours, I mean,
yours are amazing. Mine are just, if they're just half as good as yours, I mean, I just shoot to be average some days.
You should be happy for yourself, dude. All right. So Josh Saffran.
Yes, sir.
So I know that you're an entrepreneur. You started up the Gents Place here in Northwest Arkansas.
Yep.
And we actually interviewed, the main franchise owner, right?
CEO and founder, Ben Davis. Shout out to Ben.
Yeah. That was a fun episode. Mark was here for that one. But you're one of the franchisees, and you got involved in that. I mean, I think that's a kind of an interesting business because, I mean, how did you? Okay, let's can we go into that? Why did you do that, and what does that mean as being a franchisee? How is that helpful for starting a business?
Yeah, I'd moved here from bigger cities, and when I came down here, and a lot of people I almost view it as an expat community where people are coming in from New York, Chicago, Boston, and I didn't like the haircutting experience here. To me, it was like this Saturday to-do list, go to Walmart, go to Home Depot, get your haircut, check off the box on the transaction.
Sounds like something I actually...
And that's what you would have done before we came here, and I'm watching the women on a Saturday go, and they're getting their nails done, they're wearing robes, and they're drinking champagne, and I said, so we have to figure out that aspect of the men's grooming, but also being in the supplier community so long, I didn't love what I was viewing as a lot of this forced networking of, hey, there's this big charity event this weekend, my buyer's going, so you need to go. And he wanted to wave to you or she, and you're waving, but neither of you wanted to be there.
Yeah.
So I said, how do we create this networking meets grooming? And that's really what we've done with the Gents Place here. It's like barbershop meets speakeasy meets country club. And there's a huge networking aspect with lockers for members, and then member lounge where we're doing really interesting meetings with folks in the community.
So let me get this right. You came from a bigger city, which you probably had those experiences available there. You come to a new geography, you see something missing in the market, right? Entrepreneurial thinking. And then did you see that vision and then you found the Gents Place? Like you discovered it and brought it?
I knew what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I knew I didn't know how to mess with POS systems and what the right retail product was and having a distribution network. And so started doing a little bit of research and said, do we do this on our own, or do I find somebody who's got similar vision and values that I do? And we found Ben, went to visit him in Frisco where they're headquartered, met him and his wife, Lauren, and Emily, and I felt it was a good pairing, good match, both on the strategy, the vision, and most importantly, the culture on the way that the business runs and operates. And so here we are 6 years later and through COVID with a business that my wife has left her nursing job to go operate and run.
So I think that's a really cool point, like for a lot of those aspiring entrepreneurs out there. You kind of, like, honestly, starting up a business, I mean, you know this, like, it is insane, right? Like, there's so much to do. You can never get all the check marks done for the day. But being able to basically buy into a franchise like that, I mean, the things you talked about, the culture, the vision, POS system, a lot of those types of things are already set up and going.
Yeah.
It allows you to actually get to business a lot faster, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and I think, when you're a franchisee working for a franchisor, I use the phrase a lot, seen this movie, I know how it ends. He has opened and run 6 of them on his own. So how do you recruit people? Well, here's what we've done successfully, and here's what we failed at, and learn from this. Here's how we get members to come in the door. Here's how we advertise and market to them. Don't do these things. It didn't work for us, but try to utilize this strategy. And so that's a lot easier for a franchisee as an entrepreneur, because you're seeing the successes and failures from Ben and some of the other franchisee owners that I can say, all right, that makes sense for Bentonville. Let's follow that lead, or this may be a different way we want to do it, but I'm using his guidance for support. Yeah,
because you can like take some of those positive learnings at work, and then that might not work in your geography, right?
Yes.
In your community. And so you had those experiences too. Do you have an example of when you might have put a little polish on something or made a little angle to kind of fit this specific audience?
Yeah, I think for us, a great example was when they're in bigger markets, Dallas, Vegas, they're in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and the airports are enormous.
Yeah.
We market here at XNA, and there's better foot traffic. It's smaller. It's an easier airport to navigate. And so we've had success in marketing the Gents Place brand at the airport here, but I don't know that would be successful at a DFW, for example.
Yeah, because it's just
it's just so big. It's
small fish in a big pond, right?
Correct. So here, we had giant poster boards up at launch, and we had some stuff at baggage claims. 2 baggage claims here, perfect example. And so you're forcing 50% of the people to one or the other. At DFW, if you're going to market at the baggage claim, you're catching a different audience. Larger numbers, but I think here you're segregating people right where you want to see them.
That's pretty cool, man. So what have you seen that's really like whenever you did those adaptations, like did you come up with a new pricing or any new programs for the area specifically, or how does that work?
That is one of the things as the franchisee is you really have to stick to the brand standards and the guidelines. And so the example that Ben used when we were opening is, hey, if you think you can make a lot of money selling hot dogs, great, but you can't do that because it's not core to what we're trying to do. Yeah. So we're figuring out right now, I think the member lounge and the locker space and the networking aspect, and trying to figure out how to become bigger than what just a barbershop is, and figuring out how to utilize that space. Had a coffee meeting yesterday at Heroes next door, and there's people and there's noise and there's bustle and all these things happening. But in the Gents Place, you have a better environment where you can start to have conversations and talk numbers and financials and angel investing in an area where you can kind of control it, as opposed to in town here at a coffee shop where there's just so much hustle and bustle and, oh, you see who's sitting over there, right? So we're trying to figure out that aspect of it, which I think is the next generation of where the Gents Place is going.
That's really cool. So that's kind of like, as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurial thinking, you have this space, you've already got all your core stuff going, right? And then you start finding ways to basically amplify or take advantage of the strengths that you have in your spot that maybe the rest of the market doesn't. So it's not just about the original idea, right? Which you brought to the market. You saw the need, but then as you get in there and you start working the business, you stay tuned.
Well, Yeah, and it clicked for me like a couple of times because through plug and play, we do a lot. We'll talk plug and play in a bit, but we do a lot of stuff in the investing and startup space. And so we brought in a really hot startup in the area into the member lounge, and he presented in the barbershop in the member lounge to a bunch of angel investors. I think you were actually in that meeting, right? You wouldn't do that in a traditional barbershop.
Not at all. I don't even think about it.
It doesn't make sense, right? It's like you bring somebody into a barbershop, I'm getting my haircut, but now you're able to utilize that space for entrepreneurship. I think my favorite story, and I may have shared this with you, is I was meeting with the chief technology officer from a startup, and he goes, where do you want to go? Let's go get coffee. I go, let's go sit in the member lounge at the Gents Place. And so we walk in, it's like 4 o'clock on a Thursday. We have a glass of bourbon. And sitting across from us is Sam, the CEO and founder, owner of the Buttered Biscuit, which is the one of the hot breakfast places in town. Super cool dude, member there, and we're chit-chatting. And now we're talking about business, we're talking about the community, we're talking about the region. And then who pops down sitting next to us but Asa?
Oh, are you serious?
Former governor, running for president at the time. So now you got the four of us sitting there, and all of a sudden we start talking the economy, we're talking COVID, we're talking about what's going on in the elections, we're talking about Afghanistan, and you go, we're in a barbershop. Right?
Yeah.
But it's brought this entrepreneurial spirit and this ecosystem around the way that people are networking here in the community. And that was a really proud moment for me, but none of that was scripted. It all just happened.
Man, I'm going to, I think this is kind of actually just kind of hits me the value of this conversation for an entrepreneur, right? Because there's so many things to think about. I mean, heck, even, the tax part, getting licenses from, the local and state government and feds. All these different things that come in if I'm wanting to start a business. But the most important thing, I think you and I both believe in this, network. Building that network, showing up, right? And what you're kind of doing is you're creating a place for that. But if I'm trying to start a business, I mean, it would probably be pretty valuable for me to join, you invest into the Gents Place to become a member there.
Yep.
Now you're introduced into this network opportunity. But then what do you have to do? You have to show up. And then when you show up, then you have to talk to people.
Yep. I mean, it's this like-minded gents, it's right. And so I'll tell you the funny story, which you could appreciate because it just happened yesterday. So there's a guy that I have gotten to be friends with solely through the Gents Place, and he has a big HR job at a big company in the community. And so I've known him from there. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. And then so he's hearing me talk and seeing me do some podcasting. So he reaches out and says, I'd love to learn more. He shows up last night at the grand opening, and now it's a connection for you about potentially podcasting. He doesn't realize how much work I'm doing in my day job with plug and play. So he's now intrigued in what we're doing and interviewing me, so to speak, to get him connected within his company. And then he brings me a friend of his who works for another company in the supply chain space. So it's evaluated for him through the networking to you and potentially doing podcasting. I have now leads with 2 different companies that I could influence on the plug and play side, all because of this networking that started by me spending 10 minutes with him at the Gents Place.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think here's what's kind of what I like about you and I having this conversation now is because I know that we both understand the value of it. But then I've been to so many events like where folks just close up when they get around other people. Do you have any perspective or advice? Okay, you go to an event, there's a lot of people there. There's this emotional barrier that a lot of people face, but you break through it every time. Like, you're good at it. So there's probably a lot of entrepreneurs that aren't good or comfortable in that situation, but how do you overcome your own self-barriers? Because you've definitely had to do that. Right? There's not anything magical about.
I think it's a couple things. I mean, I get invited to lunches, coffees, networking, and so you sort of pick the ones that you want to go to. Otherwise, you're going to burn out super quick. But I think one thing I've learned in being here in this community for 12 years is you don't want to be overbearing on the sale. It needs to take a little bit of time. And so,
yeah, that's good.
And you agree with that. And so what I mean by that is, had somebody shown up with this new individual I introduced last night and said, hey, you want a podcast? Here's the pricing. I want to sign you up. Let's do this. It would have been such a turnoff. But if you're talking about the vision and how it could help him in long term, and maybe you don't close the sale on that moment, but over a period of time, your equity with this individual is growing so much. I had a great meeting the other day with a guy, and I've chatted with him a couple of times. Good to see you. We just got some funding for plug and play in the healthcare space. That's great. Let's grab coffee.
Yeah,
I'd like to work with him So he reached out to me and goes, hey, we'll grab coffee on March 4th. So I didn't sell anything in the moment, but it set up an authentic relationship where I knew that down the road, as trust is built and equity is built, there's an opportunity that he is now more interested in me as opposed to I'm selling something on the fly and I'm so turned off by it.
It's so funny to me because it's simple, right? Like this whole economy, all the technology and all this stuff is moving so fast, and there's all these pitches going on. You got investors that are investing in this and that, but at the end of the day, if you said it, establishing that credibility, right? And you can't go into it with a quick sale mindset. Like you and I actually, like when we first met, I mean, it wasn't like, hey man, buy this from me. It's like, hey, I'm Eric. This is what I do. This is where I was born, where I was raised, what I've been doing all my life. And I want to know this about you. And then, because I think it's really important, like you need to be able to trust who you're working with. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how big the company is that's signing the check. They want to know, and people like doing business with people that they like and that they trust, and they can believe in, that you're not going to fail them.
Yep. But here's the challenge that comes along with that is somebody that's working for somebody else in many cases has a quota, has a number, has a sale that they have to hit for the day. And so they have to figure out how to balance that. I have numbers and KPIs and results and bonuses and commissions versus the long term. I always talk about relational selling versus transactional selling. I love the relational selling. It does take time, but I think those are the ones that you want to partner with long term, understanding that you still have to sell stuff today to pay the bills tomorrow. So there's got to be a good balance, but I prefer the relational piece quite a bit.
Well, and I think that too, when you look at sales, so here I'm going to make this point. As an entrepreneur, maybe you'll agree with this. I mean, ultimately, your biggest job as the entrepreneur is sales.
No doubt.
You have to be the number one salesperson. You're campaigning, all this type of stuff. So you're involved in everything, but you cannot ever let go of that sales. You always have to know your spot in that. And what I kind of like about the whole sales thing, and you're a little bit more of a mathematician than I am. Ooh. I know.
2 + 2.
That is. But I mean, like if you talking about KPIs or you have sales quotas that you got to meet because you got to drive revenue, especially if it's your own business and you're thinking that way. But if I were in that spot, I would say, okay, if I started out with 0 connections in the community, the first thing that I would be doing is I know that I must show up. I've got to go start building relationships, shaking hands, kissing the babies, right? All that stuff, just like you're in politics or something. You have to be in those places and show up. And then as you start building that network and that community, you've shaked all these hands, then you're going to start getting meetings of where you can actually go in and demonstrate your capabilities and et cetera. But I'll see a lot of people that go fill that bucket up of relationships and they drop it off, and now they get over here in this transactional mindset without ever nourishing over in the relational mindset.
Yeah, I think it's being your authentic self and understanding it. I think what's interesting is Emily has a great manager who runs, Emily and I have a great manager who runs the Gents Place, and we never talk to her about how much did you sell today or what did you sell today. And the model is unique, is if you bring in and have a culture where you have happy people working there, they come to work with a smile, they provide a great service on Eric Howerton. Eric Howerton leaves feeling empowered, confident, and then Eric is going to spend money, right? Yeah. So when you build it that way and you create something that's real and tangible, where it's enjoyable to go to work and you feel valued at work, but then this is the relational side of stuff. Those things end up paying the transactional element of the bills that are due for rent and payroll and everything else. So it's a really interesting way to do it, but that brings credibility to you and your business because you're creating an environment that people want to be a part of.
At the end of the day, people buy things because they're getting value from it. And so if you, like in your business with the Gents Place, it's the experience. I come there, I come as a member and I have an experience and I leave with that confidence. I leave with that good experience. And so it's not a question if I'm going to continue membership or I'm going to come in, or even when I leave and there's all these products on the shelves there. Like it's there in front of me and I just had a good experience with professionals, and these are the products that Gents Place has selected. And so I'm actually expecting the same value of those products that I got just with the service in the back.
Yeah, and the way that we try to explain it, and they get very intimidated when Eric Howerton comes in, successful business person, they get a little intimidated of how do I sell to Eric? And we just explain it to them. think of yourself as the doctor, right? Think of yourself as the nurse that's prescribing. Eric, you went to the doctor and they give you this prescription, thank you, to fill out, and you don't go get Advil. You get the prescription because that's what they're telling you, right? So if Shelly or Maggie or whoever is cutting your hair and says, Eric, in order for you to maintain this look at home, you need to take this, you're going to go, okay. Oh, okay, right? Because you don't know any better. That's not what you may be a business executive that's closing multi-million-dollar deals, but they're an expert in this space that's educating you on the way to recreate this look. It's the same thing. You're not going to go get Advil when the doctor's prescribing this prescription to you.
That's right. It's simple. It's really simple. I think we overcomplicated it.
Yes, very much so.
And then when as a company gets bigger, they start overcomplicating it because everybody's watching the numbers. Everybody's got these quotas, all these things to meet. But at the end of the day, I mean, it is about that one-to-one relationship. I mean, and you can do a one-to-many, right? That just happens. Like if you're selling to a bigger company and you have one contact that can then control bigger things, that's a good thing. But that's still, that relationship is so critical to that.
Absolutely, 100%. You and I think very much alike in that space.
So at Gents Place, what's cool that you guys are kind of innovating right now, like on the service product side or whatever you might be doing?
I think the biggest thing that we have done in the last 2 years is really go back to the focus on the community. And Emily, my wife and business partner, she started a 501c3.
Oh, really?
And we've hosted 2 events now in the community to give back. And as you know how important that is here. And so
totally, yeah.
We've done 2 bourbon tastings, steak dinners, and we've raised, last year, we netted $50,000 for 2 charities in one evening. And so, again, it's sort of hubbed through the barbershop, but it's a 501c3 that is utilizing the networking from there. And the events have been just...
What's the nonprofit that she's...
So it's the 501c3 that she started, and the charities that we're focused on, one are veterans-based, and one is pancreatic cancer. So every year we have half goes to a veterans charity, and then half goes to PanCan. And when these people come in, the first year we did it, the lady from PanCan came in, and she was expecting like $1,500, and we walk in and we hand her a check the first year for $15,000, and she started crying.
It's awesome.
And this is all through one evening, one event in town where, again, we talked about the authentic networking. 80 dudes hanging out, drinking bourbon, eating steak, and bidding on things for local charities. It's wonderful. So it's been a big passion, and the ability for us to give back in the community is really important.
You know, when you research a lot of the successful entrepreneurs, you know, wealthy individuals, whatever it might be, I mean, what gives them satisfaction is helping others, you know? And so, I mean, I think that's awesome that you guys are doing that. And I mean, it's fantastic to do that. It gives you personal value in being able to help other people out.
Well, you've been in this community a long time. I mean, you see there's folks that are very fortunate, knock on wood, and then there's others that are less fortunate. And I know that you came up similar upbringing to me, that you didn't have what you have today. Yeah. And I and you have the opportunity to make this community better and do things for others in a great area that we live, and super important. And it means a lot. Emily, last year through the Gents Place, she went and procured like 80 turkeys that she went and delivered to Title III schools, and walking in with turkeys for Thanksgiving and watching the principals in tears as we're giving turkeys. We don't give cash because you never know where the cash is going to end up.
Sure.
But you give somebody a turkey that can make a Thanksgiving meal through the Gents Place. How rewarding is that? And by the way, it's a barbershop, right? But we're doing all these other cool things.
You know, I think that same mentality of, like, if you can set up a business, and this is kind of my philosophy these days, I don't know about you, but I like starting businesses that I know is going to help people, whether it's in business or even folks that might not have, might have less, fortunate circumstances, but also just people that are trying to do businesses, right? I mean, like, having that vision of where ultimately your product or your service that you're developing and selling is helping somebody else continue to achieve and just do better for them. I mean, I think that's the right approach, period.
100%.
100%.
Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about Plug and Play. So you got Gents Place that you own, right? You're a busy guy. Gents Place that you own, we just talked about that. But you also work with Plug and Play.
Yeah, Gents Place, we opened 6 years ago, and kind of like you, it was my strategy and vision idea. We worked with Ben, Emily left her job in nursing, and she sort of runs the day-to-day operations, and we have a great manager. So I can kind of watch what's going on from 30,000 feet and sort of swoop in when she has a marketing request or needs help with some strategy and vision. Plug and play is my job. Plug and play is what I'm spending my time on. It's an interesting business model. It's a VC out of Silicon Valley.
VC being venture capital.
Venture capital, yes, thank you. And the CEO who you had met when he was in town.
He's such a cool.
He's like the second investor in Dropbox and some of these companies. So he's writing 50,000 checks, turning them into tens of millions of dollars. Yeah. And he said there's something there about the startup ecosystem and helping mentor these folks. What Plug and Play does here in Northwest Arkansas is we have a team of 5 that's focused in the supply chain vertical.
Okay.
We have 20 plus verticals all around the world, focused on insurtech, fintech, supply chain, crypto, and we just started a sports tech one in Frisco, working down there by the Cowboy Stadium. And we mentor and accelerate startups, but what we do that's unique is we then partner and marry them up with corporations that are looking for help to solve challenges.
Okay.
So give you an example. We do a lot in the robotic space. So folks are looking to figure out how to automate the entire supply chain network. There's not a lot of people when you stand up at a conference and say, who grew up wanting to unload trucks by hand, or who wanted to case pick or piece pick on a line. And so there's a labor shortage there. So we're spending a lot of time in the robotic space helping figure out how to automate in the supply chain, and the startups we're working with all around the world can help solve these problems quicker and faster for these corporations.
So if I get this correct, Plug and Plays is the more of it's I guess it's kind of a half and half job. Like you're constantly working with the big corporations and really just trying to understand their bullet pointed problems that they're facing.
Yep.
Because those are really big problems for them. And it's hard for big corporations to probably innovate, and to be entrepreneurial, right? We see that a lot, but that's a hard nut to crack.
Yep.
I think very, very few major corporations have really done that.
They all say they do. They all have teams to do it, and some of them do it very well.
Yeah.
But when you're a cruise ship, I always use this example, right? And you're going due east, and you want to turn the big cruise ship, it's hard to do. But you have a speedboat or a motorboat,
there you go,
which is what these startups are, and they can turn and move on a dime, and super entrepreneurial, fast thinking, and so they're trying to solve a specific problem. And when you could marry that up with a corporation that's got money to do a pilot and then to commercialize it, it's really a good match. But you have the most important thing for Plug and Play is working closely with this company to understand exactly what they're trying to solve. We worked with somebody that said, "Hey, I want to solve. I'm in the robotics space." I'm like, "Dude, that's at like 6 million feet up in the air. I need you to pull that back to a level where I can digest it, because there's so many things happening in that space right now. What are you really trying to solve? How early of a startup are you looking for? Meaning, are you like pre-seed and seed, like really early? Or do you need case studies from somebody that's been doing years and years and years of work with other companies? And what is your tolerance for risk? And then let's bring them together for you in the form of what we call a deal flow, where we're sitting down and doing formalized introductions."
Dude, that's so cool. Such a huge value to the entrepreneur too. Because, a lot of times, like if you're an entrepreneur or startup in that space, you're like, man, I got a great solve here. I can solve this problem. Then all of a sudden it becomes, I can solve 100 different problems. And if I'm trying to go out and build my business, and then you're talking to all these major corporations or even other businesses, like you're now the one that has to crystallize that. And that takes significant amount of time.
Yeah.
And expertise.
Well, here's what I love. So if a startup is saying that we work with, whether we invest in them or don't invest in, so we invest in a small percentage of the ones that we keep within our global network. Some of them we think we want to invest in and partner with, and other ones we're just networking and introducing. But imagine that you're Eric Howerton of startup A, B, and C, and you have this really cool product, and you say, "Geez, I'd love an introduction to Maersk. I'd love an introduction to Procter & Gamble. I'd love an introduction to Nike. I'd love an introduction to Mercedes," but you don't know how to do that. You think they're taking a phone call from you? Or are they taking a phone call from folks like us who have this global network where there were 550 companies like that we're working with across their entire innovation team? And that's the value, one of the main values that we provide to the startups, is making these introductions.
Yeah, because like if I was a big corporation and I know I can talk to one person or one company that's got multiple opportunities, like my time is valuable at the high corporation, right? And I've got this problem or these problems I have to solve. It'd be great to have 5 problems I need to solve, talk to one company like Plug and Play, and then you have this network and you can kind of you're helping me marry that as well as a corporation.
Well, think about this for a second. I had a good chuckle because we were in front of a potential customer, and somebody at a senior level in the organization said, we need to get ourselves more embedded and understand the robotic space. Great. Okay. So that's a top-down request. So this guy tells me he's on Google all day, Googling the top robotics companies. So now he's outreaching to these companies. Oh, yeah, I can do that tomorrow for pennies on the dollar. So now he's like, this is too good to be true. But so he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And of course, this company is going to say, I got a call from a big corporation.
Sure.
I could do. What we do is we source and vet all these companies. And then we go, yes, you called company A and they're good, but I have 4 case studies with company B and C that are probably more relevant. And I've seen their work. And I would tell you, this is a better fit for you than this company. So we're finding the companies for them. We're vetting them out and we're making recommendations as to who the best one is for you and why, as opposed to you Googling startups in the robotic space and picking up the phone and making calls and not knowing what's going to be on the other end of the phone.
All right, so let's get into the entrepreneurial side, like these startups. If I was listening to this show right now and I was a tech startup, I'd be like geeking right now because I'd be like, man, I need to get tapped into Plug and Play. Because here they have all these connections with these corporations. Super great opportunity. But I want to connect with you as a startup. Like, how do I approach you? Like, and how can you help me? Or, I mean, do I need to, what kind of credibility do I need to have to even approach you? What's that process look like?
I think I get lots of requests on this stuff. And so I am the guy that's managing the corporate relationship here in Northwest Arkansas. And so we have a team, a ventures team solely focused on startups in the supply chain space. So I'll get people in the community coming to me with ideas and I'll say, not the right fit for Plug and Play. You're too early. You have an idea that you wrote down on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Come back to me when you have a business plan and you have a little bit further out ideation.
So what is that? When you say a business plan, a little bit further out in the ideation?
So the first thing is, what problem are you trying to solve?
Okay.
Right. That's the most important thing to me is there's an issue that I'm trying to solve. Okay. That makes sense. Then I want to see who the founder is. Like, what's your, and I'm brand new, but I have 3 or 4 different mentors. One graduated from Harvard and has 3 exits. One's a robotics expert in supply chain. So, okay. So now I see you got a group of people that are giving you guidance, that are believing in your product and your brand.
Because they've checked you out.
Correct.
Okay.
So you want to understand that too. Those are the early things to me. What problem are you trying to solve? Who are you and kind of who is backing you from an ideation standpoint? And then the next piece is like, what is your launch plan and how are you trying to get out to market? And what's your competitive playing field look like?
Okay.
So you may have a really cool idea and I can go into our proprietary software called Playbook and type in what you're trying to do. Hey, there's 37 startups that are doing this and they're all further ahead than you. You may want to tweak or you may want to think about something else. You may want to find a way that you're going to differentiate yourself than the other 37. So those are the early conversations that I like to be a part of. And if I find something that I find of interest here, I'll then parse that off to our ventures team and say, do you want to have a conversation? At that point, they then say, Josh, I think it's investable for us. Remember, we're pre-seed and seed, so we're very, very early.
Okay.
Let's have a meeting. Or probably not investable, and here's why. But let's put them into our playbook where a corporation may then get an introduction to them from anywhere around the world because a company like a Volvo may be looking to solve this, and we find them in our database.
Yeah, that's so cool. So I'm getting kind of excited about this for any listener, right? Like, so do I have to, if you're pre-seed and seed, like first of all, for an entrepreneur, like I was talking to somebody about this the other day, this little sidetrack here, but I was at an investor gathering a couple months ago, and we had a bunch of investors in the room, right? Really smart people, and they've got, and all these investors, investment groups have a lot of investment capital, and they're looking to invest. As an investor, you want to be able to place money and make it work.
Correct.
Right. And you want to make multiples on that. It's just the way the shit goes. Quickly. And with highest returns possible. That's what all of it's about. The problem that I saw in that room is okay, I remember me being an entrepreneur, or as an entrepreneur, I don't know anything about raising capital. I don't know anything about the way all this other world works in the whole financial industry. I just know I have an idea. I have a market need that I want to solve. I can go solve that. And so what I did not know, especially in the early days, was how to even raise capital. And to be honest with you, a lot of the VC firms, private equity firms, all these different ways to access capital was really intimidating. There's so many acronyms, there's so many levels, and you said pre-seed and seed, then there's Series A and B, and there's all these things going on. I felt like in that room, it kind of dawned on me, it was like, where are the founders? The founders weren't in the room. That's kind of like one of the big problems, right? Because a founder can be from so many walks in life. And I think that there are some professional founders out there, right? That are going down kind of
multiple exits,
with multiple exits.
Yep.
But then what about this genius? Because a lot of times I see the founders that really, why didn't Bezos, right? Or why didn't Sam Walton or any of these other, or Elon, right? Like in the very beginning, they didn't know anything about all this stuff. But man, wouldn't you love to have been one of the first investors on those folks?
But this is where, when I talked earlier with you, I said that when you and I sit down, we need somebody else to be in it, because you and I are very similar in the way that we think.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, if we founded a company together, it would not go well because we both have the similar thinking, similar mindset. Yeah. So I was just mentoring a startup company through one of the programs here recently. And these guys were good. They had a really good idea. And there were 3 founders, and they were all the exact same. They all were the sales guy, each of them. And I said, guys, I love you, and I love your idea.
Yeah.
And they said, what mentorship advice can you give me? I go, bring in somebody that understands the investment and finance space.
Yeah.
Bring in somebody that understands the marketing space. They don't have to be an employee, but you guys are all really good, but you're all in the same lane.
Yeah.
And so bring in a diverse team, where somebody that you're hiring, or somebody that's mentoring you, or somebody that's a paid consultant, somebody that's in a fractional role, but bring somebody in that rounds you out so you can get through all of these things. Because to your point, if you don't know the investment space, don't try to figure it out on your own. Bring in an expert that can help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, all right, let's go back. I'm sorry I sidetracked a little bit on that, but are you telling me that if I am a founder and I have an expertise and I see a market need in robotics or whatever it might be, I could literally have just a plan that I've kind of written out about the problem, the market need, and I've done my thinking. You need these founders to do their thinking, right? And do homework. Look at the competitive landscape. They do their own Google. They do all this. They need to spend the time to basically build out this plan of what they see that the solve of the market is. Have their network of advisors with them, and so putting that on the resume. But I could literally bring you something that has 0 revenue. I haven't even gone out to the market to start selling. But I could come and say, hey, Josh, here's my idea. Here's how I think it's going to work. Do they need a pro forma too? Like say, hey, look, if I get X amount of dollars, or this is kind of my revenue scale here, and this is what I see the market opportunity. So they need to come with that too, right?
Yeah, you have to have, you can't just have an idea. It's just too early. That's the first place I want to start talking to somebody, but you actually have to have some revenue. You have to have business. You have to have customers.
You do have to have all of that stuff.
You have to be, that's really investable. Otherwise, you're just a really cool idea.
I'm glad we touched on that. No, it's fine. The deal is like, I think this was valuable about this podcast, right? Is that if somebody's sitting here listening to this, that you're not getting, or even any investors not getting, or even a bank, or getting phone calls of where you're having to spend that time. It'd be so great if you had 5 founders that came to you, already had the pieces in place to talk to you, and they need to understand these different investment groups, right? Like you wouldn't do the same thing to a private equity group.
Correct.
Right. You want to have like years of business and it's got all this stuff, and they're going to help take it to another level.
Yeah. One of the things I'm seeing a lot of momentum on in the community is exactly this. There's a lot of smart founders that don't know how to start, where to go, who to do. Do I talk to Startup Junkie? Do I talk to Plug and Play? Do I talk to Endeavor? When do I talk to Nelson Peacock and Serafina over at NWA Council? How do I get my funding through the Arkansas Economic Development Council? When do I reach out to the Walton Family Foundation?
Yeah.
I hear the Walton family has RZC, and when do I go see them? New Road Capital. There's a lot of noise. Angels 412. There's a lot of spaces. So I think the community's trying to do a better job in helping put together a roadmap of where you start, how you move. There's some companies are starting to put that stuff in place to make it easier. As you come up with your idea, follow these steps. So there's a lot of work being done in that space right now.
Where's that resource at today? Or is it live, or is it coming up?
Endeavor is doing some work in that space. They did a lot of interviews last year. They recently launched something. I don't know how widespread it is. And the U of A has spent a lot of time in this space as well. So I think it's done. I just don't know that it's out there as it needs to be shared right now. I could be wrong on that, but I know there's been a lot of thinking and work that's gone into this space.
Well, I can say if you're listening to this podcast, right? I mean, I think what would help us here, like if you shot us a note and say you're interested in this, like, I mean, because I think that there's opportunity here to demystify the roadmap, right? I mean, like you can be a founder. There is a founder, or there are founders, but then there's the way to get capital and grow and scale a business and fund the business. All this stuff, like we need that roadmap, right? And it'd be cool to have another podcast where we kind of start demystifying that and how can you get this thing launched and what's the right ways to go. I think that could be heck of freaking podcast of its own.
Yeah. I mean, and if there's a program called GORP, the Greenhouse Outdoor Recreation Program, shout out to Phil Shellhammer. And you're familiar with that for some of your passion work.
He's a great guy. And
so what they do is they're starting this stuff really. He works for the university. So they're catching these guys early with ideas. They're putting in with mentors. They're getting them through an accelerator. And then when they get through with the program, what are the next steps? Well, is it a plug and play? Is it a startup junkie? Like where do you go once you've sort of been through this program? And it's a great question. Like, what is next, and where do you go? There's a company in town called Lives In. Andrew is a fantastic entrepreneur. He does some great outdoor men's clothing. It's a fantastic story, and he's investable. People have now written him checks in the community, and he's a local guy with a brick and mortar and an e-commerce business over on 8th Street. Got a great brand, great products, and people are now writing checks to him in his program, all right here in Bentonville.
That's fantastic. Man, so plug and play, like so if I'm a founder, I got an idea, all this stuff we talked about in the tech space, some of the things you mentioned, can I go to a resource with plug and play to understand if you're the right folks I need to reach out to, do my homework before I ping Josh Saffran?
Yeah, I mean, there's inbound email through our website. We're a plug and play tech center, so there's ways to find us. You could find me directly here in the community.
Cool.
You and when you go out to the website, figure out which vertical that you're looking to solve. Are you in a sustainability space, food and beverage, new materials and packaging, and look at some of the areas that we're focused on and solving. It's all out there on the website. And then reach out to me locally, and I could funnel you into things. Additionally, on the supply chain specifics front, we do a major event here every year. And we've
great event too.
Co-hosted it. Thank you. We're co-hosting it with the University of Arkansas, the Supply Chain School.
Nice.
And it's April 25th at the Momentary. And we already have 2 amazing keynote speakers, and we have over 100 people signed up over 2 months out. So this will be a 300 and 400 person event. And if you want to see Plug and Play live in action, come to the event and register. It's no charge on April 25th.
Okay.
Well, I'll keep you a VIP seat.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. It's pretty cool.
Anything for you.
I had to put you on the spot on the biggest podcast in the networks right now, just so you could give me an invite.
Done.
Appreciate it. So that's really cool. I think that what I'm also trying to get across to any entrepreneur is do some homework. Like in your late nights or whatever you're doing, right? Do your research, look on the sites, understand who you're about to approach. If you're trying to raise capital, or if you have an idea and you need that capital, or you need to understand what stage you're at. And even when there's not a roadmap available, build your own roadmap, understand this a little bit. And then you need to start investing your time so that I can have a good conversation with you when I meet. Because in all honesty, if I have a shot at meeting with Josh Saffran, right, it would be much better if I came and I knew about plug and play, what you're trying to do, what's your mission, your values, who you're connected with, and I can align my my solution to a problem with you. You're going to be impressed in that meeting, right? And so kind of go back on our previous conversations. I, as a founder, bring Josh Saffran value. That's a good way to start a relationship.
Absolutely. And I'm not talking about buying me coffee, right? I'm not this kind of thing. You come to me, and the two things, again, if you're bootstrapping, right, you don't need any funding whatsoever at all, but you have an idea and you want to get in front of Nike or Walmart or General Mills, something like that, like, great, bring me that avenue. If you're looking for an early investment, come to me. So almost like two pitches, so to speak. One is an investable pitch, and one is a pitch that I can then share with corporations as to why you're going to help them solve problems. And I don't really care which one or where you're looking to go. And when we invest in companies also, we don't take any equity. So that's another
Really?
Zero.
Okay. How the hell does that work? Sorry for my bad language.
No. I mean, some accelerators, they'll ask for a piece of the company. We are going to invest and buy parts of the company. We'll be an investor in pre-seed and seed, but to go through our program as an accelerator, we don't ask for any equity in the company.
So there's two levels, right? Like you can get into what did you call the software, the network? Playbook.
Yep.
Yeah. So to get in the playbook, you're not getting anything out of that necessarily.
Zero. I mean, the startup firms go, it's too good to be true. But our business is, one, we're investing in you and we're going to make money on the exit. Or two, we're going to get our corporate partners to contract with us. Yeah. And so then we're going to introduce you to the corporate partner. So the startups are almost like it's too good to be true. And the answer is, it is. You get to come through us, get into our network, learn, grow, mentor, and then be pushed out into the real world to get you either the investments that you need or relationships and introductions to corporate partners.
And so all this is Saeed's business model they set up, huh?
Yep.
I love that dude. We got to have him on the show sometime.
He is, I tell you, he is incredibly smart. Like his brain, the stuff that goes on. We had a company that I had introduced him to, and we were just walking through our corporate headquarters in Silicon Valley. He didn't know that these people were here. He didn't know who they were. I introduced them to him. And he goes, oh, I almost invested in something that you invested in years ago. And they go, oh, yes, it's doing very well for us. And he goes, it's worth X today, right? And they go, yeah, like to the penny. Wow. So this is a company that like he didn't know was walking in the door. He didn't know the startup that they had invested in. Like he had done no homework, and he knew that specific company, what it was worth. And he was almost like saying, I wish I had invested in them. Like, how did he know that? I'm like, I don't know how he, like, it was amazing. No prep work, nothing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's just, here's the thing, Josh. What I would say to any entrepreneur or founder, and you're thinking about getting into the entrepreneurism space, if nothing else, it's fantastically fun, and you get to meet some of the coolest people that are out there, the movers and shakers, people that are wanting to make a difference, add value, make changes, make things better. I mean, it's great to be in that group of folks. It's energizing, and I look at it as like it's an honorable experience to look back at my career and just see the hundreds of people, thousands of people that I've met along the way and been able to provide value back to. And then, I mean, it's rewarding. It's absolutely rewarding.
Well, and I would tell you, having come here almost 13 years ago as a CPG selling to Walmart, until about 2 to 3 years ago, I didn't realize how vast the entrepreneurial startup ecosystem is here in Northwest Arkansas. There's so many things happening with Walmart, from buying and selling as a Clorox and a Colgate and all these other ones. And it's fantastic, and it's what built this community to where it is. But watching the innovation and watching what's going on, whether it's in the outdoor recreation space, whether it's in some of the stuff we're doing in supply chain, all the health tech stuff that's going on right now with what Alice Walton is doing and involved in. There's a whole other world out there above and beyond, incremental to what's going on in buying and selling at Walmart and all the great stuff that Tyson and JB Hunt are doing. I am so blown away by all the thinkers, all the entrepreneurs, and all the visionaries that are continuing to evolve this community versus where it was 10, 15 years ago.
Man, I'd even say that even like in the last few years, and Plug and Play was one of the originators of initiating this investment. We brought together that bridge, right? You can now be an entrepreneur or founder with an idea, and you have somebody that you can go approach to help fund and capitalize that and get that network you were talking about. That network, to me, I would say, like, what I'm super interested in that network, right? If I would have had that back in the day, I could have fast forward so much of my success, any success that I had, by the years.
Yeah.
Painful experience in a lot of circumstances, trying to get connected with the right people. That time is the most precious currency in the world.
Yep. And and you're amazing at it. And it's one of the things I love best. If I can introduce somebody to somebody, that can help further the individual, the economy, the community. Everybody in Northwest Arkansas is really focused on that. So many people. And it's amazing what this group can solve together, right? Yep. Everybody getting out of their own. The amount of coffee meetings I'm having, and I know you do the same thing where you're trying to network with somebody to somebody else and figure out what they can do. And that person then introduces you to someone, and then they introduce you to someone else, and you go, wow, right? Like, it's like almost like the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation here. Oh, you know Eric Howerton? Oh, yeah. How do you know him?
Yeah.
This is how he can help you, or I can help you, or he can help this whole ecosystem. And you go, wow. Like, and this stuff doesn't happen in New York City.
Right.
It's just so big and vast.
Yeah.
This community is perfect for this whole thing.
Man, I just want to state on record, thank you for everything you do. Because, I mean, you really live this out. Like, I mean, just even yesterday, you're helping me. And I appreciate that. And I mean, I think that anybody that's listening to this, that's trying to get off the ground and get going, getting to know you, approaching you, getting connected with you is going to be highly valuable for them. And I appreciate you doing that for everybody around here. I really do.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And I appreciate it as well. I mean, it's stuff where you want to pay it forward. You want to help others. Others had helped. Same thing. Had others helped you earlier on, you'd have been much further along. And I look at it like how do you continue to play this thing forward and get people connected? There's a lot of cool things happening right in this community, and it's just a matter of really one person being introduced to somebody else that's going to solve a lot of these challenges. And
I would say that anybody that's listening that's not in this community, you have a community, like it's really about community. It really is. Yep. I mean, I think one of the cool things about ours is that Sam Walton really initiated.
Who was an entrepreneur, right? You look at Walmart and go, this is a massive company, but he had an idea.
Yep.
And that's where it came from. Same thing with Tyson. Same thing with JB Hunt. Same thing with ArcBest. All these companies started out of an idea from an entrepreneur. People don't think that way about those companies. They're huge. Yep. They started with an idea.
And their founders were connected, and they were civic leaders around here, and they were charitable givers.
Very focused on the community.
I mean, all of them, every one of them. And so if you're a founder and entrepreneur and you are really going to try to become rich, you're really putting yourself in a vulnerable position to be disappointed.
Yes.
But if you're coming as a founder and you're like, I want to improve the market and help other people and provide a service or product that amplifies the economy and helps all these people around, and I will receive the value back, then you're on the right track.
And people will flock to you in the latter of what you just said. In the front one, people will see through you and not be interested in working with you.
I've seen it happen so many times.
Yep. Example after example.
It hurts. It's painful to watch.
And by the way, it may be the best idea in the world, and it doesn't get traction for exactly that reason. People don't want to be here to see a check. They want to be here for the big ecosystem. And so some good ideas fail, and other average ideas succeed just because of the way that they go about doing it.
Mm-hmm. So true. Anything else you want to say about Gents Place, Plug and Play, or anybody, or any last advice to the entrepreneurs, founders out there?
Be courageous. If you have an idea, talk to somebody about it. Don't worry about somebody stealing your idea. I mean, if you want people to sign, I had somebody approach me and ask me to sign an NDA before I had any further conversations, and I was happy to do so. And I was able to point him in the right direction and move. But if you're in a job today that you don't love and you're super entrepreneurial, I would also recommend doing a personality study and understanding what motivates you. It clicked for me when I joined Plug and Play how important variety is in my work life. And I was realizing I didn't love the same line review every year with different items. I realized that variety inspires me and not doing the same thing every day. And that proved to me how entrepreneurial I am. So if you're somebody that's like that and likes variety and you have an idea, you'll be kicking yourself 10 years down the road. I wish I had. Talk to somebody. Sit down with Eric, sit down with me, schedule time and have those conversations. They may go nowhere, but it may be the greatest thing that you've ever done in your life because you had the opportunity to talk to somebody about what you're trying to do.
I want to have you back. And let's get down into that a little bit, because at the end of the day, entrepreneurism is, I would say, majority emotional.
And it's scary.
It's
scary. Like, do I leave my job where I got a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks?
Yep.
It's safe. It's comfortable. I don't love it. It puts food on the table. But if I left my job and went to do this, it may be amazing, but I may not be able to afford my rent. I may not be for my mortgage payments, but I think it's the greatest thing ever and I love it. So how do you find that? How risk averse are you? And how do you then figure out what's right for you? Do you take a partner, right? Do you bring in investors? Like, this is the stuff that's really important, but but don't sit on an idea if you have a really good one. Figure out what to do with it.
All right, we're going to do another episode, maybe a few more to kind of get into that, because I'm very passionate about that conversation, because that's I mean, I would not put myself as a super smart person, but I did have a tremendous amount of passion, still do. I mean, there's something that drives, I don't know, there's just so much to uncover there as to why, and I think that I'm with you. I was actually talking to somebody last night that has always had ideas, but even self-proclaimed that he is not an entrepreneur. And I'm like, you don't really know that, bro.
Yeah. Well, to your point, the last thing for me, I mean, when you surround yourself with the right people, we've talked about it a few times. My plug and play team here, there's 5 of us, and I keep calling us the Fab Four and Josh, right? And I've surrounded myself with the right people that are rounding out the things that I'm not very good at. And the accumulation of the 5 of us is a really good team. Josh has his role, but the other guys and gals are doing a tremendous amount of work, and we're getting our brand out there in the community. But again, it's the group and putting yourself, understanding your vulnerabilities and where you're not good at, and bringing the right people to support you and take care of your blind spots.
People want to help you.
They do.
All right, Josh, so I'm going to make any last pitch for you.
Just thank you for having me here. The podcast studio is gorgeous and amazing.
Thanks, man.
If you're an entrepreneur and want to do some podcasting, this is the place to be in Northwest Arkansas. I'm so proud of you and what you've done here. Bro. And this is just the beginning. This is a great spot, and I'm real excited to see where you take it.
Yeah, man, it is exciting. I love the team too, man. The team's geeked out. That's one of the most rewarding things.
But also, I know all of them. They also round out your right, like stuff that you're not great at. They're fantastic at.
Oh yeah,
which is why it's a great team.
Hell yeah, that's one thing.
Even Parker.
Definitely even Parker. Hey, so our last pitch here for Big Talk About Small Business. Hey, listen, folks, get online, go to our site, sign up for a newsletter, reach out, say hi, get connected, pitch the idea of coming on the show. We love that stuff. And don't forget to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, because we need money like everyone else needs money.
Everybody
needs some money. But we do appreciate y'all listening. I'm really stoked out about our listeners here in this podcast. I think it's going to be really helpful, Josh. We're going to have you back, man.
Always a
good
pleasure.
Combo, bro. Thanks for everything you do again.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Eric.
Got it, man.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk About Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.